on live. This Hangout on air is live. So it is July 6th, and we're talking about project-based learning. And we have a quorum, we have decided, to discuss. Those who are unable to join can still ask questions with the Q&A button, and Shane has beautifully provided us a PDF to show how it could be done. It's a magical thing. I'm Laura Sexton. I'm a little bit obsessed with project-based learning. My blog's called PBL and the TL. And Sharon has added Google effects. I teach Spanish at an early college, high school, and mostly I do deal with novices. And I've been doing PBL stuff, let's say, about 4 years. So let's move on to Senora Landis.
I have not done any type of PBL, so this is brand new. I talked about it and started planning for it for next year, and I teach Spanish 1 at Warren High School in Tampa, Florida, to very large classes with a very urban population.
And Ms. Tebow?
Let's see here. I don't teach right now. I actually am a world languages coordinator, so I support 26 world language teachers face-to-face, and then we have an online virtual academy, but we do have some STEM academies. And one of them, this could fit very well, and we also have some blended options happening within some personalized learning academies. So I would like to see this take hold even more, and we're 100% standards-based as well. So this could be a very good fit. Well, I know it can be. So I just need to learn more to be able to support my teachers.
Hey, more join us. All right, Ms. Braverman, if you could be our guide and wise person now.
Sure. My name is Shane Braverman. I teach in a public school, a middle school in Bellevue, Washington. I teach middle school Spanish, and I use some PBL things in my classroom to a fairly basic level.
Right. We have several people figuring out how to join us. This is awesome. But a little reminder that the key when you are in the video chat is the mute button and or headphones so that we can only get what we mean to say in the video. I'm talking to you. All right. So, Senor Ricardo, if you'll introduce yourself.
Hi there. I'm Ricardo Calderon. I'm originally from Panama, and I work at the American International School of Muscat in Muscat, Oman, in the Arabian Peninsula. I'm right now at my parents' house in Panama, so sorry for that. But in regards to PBL, I'm actually attending a summer institute in Hawaii at the University of Manoa to get more information about it. I've been doing research about it, and I definitely think it's one of the best ways to get students more involved in real-world settings. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, did I do something?
Sorry, Ms. Luce, can you introduce yourself now? Perhaps not. Or perhaps we'll move on to my buddy, Ms. Angela Datz. She's muted at the moment. Angela, can you hear? Can you unmute? I cannot unmute you.
Yeah, it's me.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Hey. Yeah, my computer's decided it's on vacation with me.
So you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do?
I'm a Spanish teacher in Dallas, North Carolina. Currently on vacation in Ohio.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're all across the country at the moment. All right, Cecilia's still trying to join. Okay, so watch this one. She says, okay, so that's our panel. Talk about project-based learning. I suspect that everybody has a basic idea of what project-based learning means, and one thing I would like to do to clarify my perception of it is talk about the difference between the dessert and the main course. We've always done projects as long as we've been teaching. As long as we were students, projects were always the fun thing, and for a long time they were treated as desserts, like just a kind of a fun thing to add on to make kids glad to be there and, you know, to reward them for making it through the tests and notes and all that. But if we were actually doing project-based learning, the project is the meat. It is the main course. It is what everything is centered around, where all the nourishment comes from, and it is not an afterthought. It is not for fun. It is not extra. It is the bulk of the course. So that being said, can anyone else offer some clarification on what project-based learning means to them, or something they've discovered about it?
In this case, from what I've learned, like the Buck Institute of Education or something like that, BIE, they're offering like a framework of 8 elements that will help teachers actually come up with a whole framework to developing projects-based learning. Because the main thing, of course, as you were saying, like kids get very excited about working on projects, because they have that freedom of doing their own thing. But I ended up learning that they have to also the results of what they come up with, it has to go beyond the school setting. And when they actually present, they not only present to their own classmates, but it has to have some real-world impact. I mean, it has to be not only presented to their classmates, but to entities or people outside of the school. So you take them beyond the brick and mortar setting. That's what I know so far. I'm still on the works.
I would say audience is probably the biggest thing for us as language educators, because that's what brings the language to life. If you don't have someone that you're speaking it to, why are you speaking it? So,
Right.
so that public audience is key. Like, to go beyond just talking to you because they know you understand English, so they don't have to speak to you in the target language. But if you have someone who is a native speaker who is from outside, then you got them. Like, you got to do this. It's not a choice anymore. Excellent aspect of it. Anyone else? Any other ideas on what it takes to be project-based learning? What it's about?
It isn't an idea, but I wanted to kind of piggyback on what I believe Ricardo said about the global kind of implications of project-based learning. I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to project-based learning, because I feel like with technology, our students, instead of being very connected, are actually kind of creating their own individual communities in which they only engage online. So I'd like to see more of the global connections and have them interact with people from outside the country to also teach them to be culturally aware, culturally tolerant, really big into culturally relevant teaching. So it's really important to me that PBL, I think, really, works together with that.
Right, we can tell them what they're supposed to do all we want, but unless they actually like test drive it and try it with their own little communities, people whose opinions matter to them, it's not going to do much anything. I see Ms. Viviana has joined us. She might be having a little bit of trouble. Once again, the key with Hangouts is the headphones and the mute button if you're not ready. So that might help you a little bit, Viviana. Move on. Anything else, you guys? Viviana?
Yeah.
Viviana, you want to tell us who you are, what you're doing, and what PBL is for you?
Okay, my name's Viviana Tracy. I teach Spanish at Central Middle. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I don't know much about project-based learning, to be honest. So I'm probably not the best participant for this one.
Is there anything that you want to know?
How to keep all the burners going, I guess. And I'm trying to figure out what I did to make you guys go away.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can't see you. Same with Luz. And Angela, I think, did it on purpose because her computer died.
Hi. Can I introduce myself?
Please do, Luz. There you are.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Luz Ramirez, and I teach Spanish for both the non-native.
I heard Luz Ramirez.
Yes. Yes. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to figure this out, but I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am Luz Ramirez, and I teach Spanish for non-native and for heritage speakers. I'm from California, and I just survived my first year implementing PBL. It was my first, yes, and I'm very thrilled and eager to learn more. But one of the big things about PBL that I want to add is it's huge on collaboration, and that was a huge area that I need definitely to improve on how to best facilitate collaborative tasks to make them meaningful. That was one of my biggest challenges this year. So that's what I know. PBL, it's huge on collaborations and teamwork and all of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's one of the best ways to get 21st century learning into our classrooms, because they are doing and they are using the critical thinking, the collaboration, and all the four C's that are replacing the R's these days. So it is a great way to do that. And I think we got Jennifer here now. Jennifer, you want to introduce yourself?
And that was a huge area that I need.
I think Jennifer is listening.
With the collaborative path.
All right, I'm going to mute Jennifer for a little bit while she's getting caught up. All right. So, just to let Jennifer know when she does catch up, headphones and microphone. I think she might be watching the video set. All right, so Shane went ahead and posted a question for us ahead of time, and I think we'll go ahead and talk about that unless somebody would like to add something else about what PBL means.
It was mostly just an example question for people wanting to know how to ask a question.
Okay, like the one that you posted?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question, but...
I like it, so I'm going with it. So, Shade said, my biggest struggle is how to stay... Nope, wrong one. Where did they go? Actually, that's Cecile's question, and it's at the top. I think someone upvoted it or something. So, Cecile says, my biggest struggle is how to stay in the target language with PBL, especially when it comes to providing directions for the project. Would love to hear examples. Okay, so PBL and the TL. Well, I know something about that. So directions. Do you guys have any strategies for giving directions for projects in the target language, or do you?
Depends completely on the level.
Depends completely on the level?
Yeah. So like my 1As, so like very, very beginners, there's a lot of like miming and over-exaggeration of what they're supposed to do versus what they're not supposed to do. And use as much TL as possible, but oftentimes there's a lot of confused looks. And so for super important instructions, those end up in English for like very beginners.
Right. And for my beginners, because that's pretty much all I have, like everything on Google Classroom is in English. So like there is no saying, I didn't understand what I was supposed to do. It's there, it's written, they can find it. They have the directions in English for most things. Now, excuse me, for me, what it depends on is not just the level, but also the activity. So like if we are picking what they want to do with their groups, if they're deciding what they want to do next, if they're planning who's going to bring what materials, those like I can usually do with a set kind of practice. Like a routine way of addressing the instructions. So like if you want to do it similar ways, similar in different projects. So like we always have a calendar. So like we can go through the calendar and like say this is when we have to do our IPA, this is when we have a day off, this is when I have to have grades in. So and like they can understand pretty much all of that. We're talking dates, numbers, stuff they know. Now if I wanted to do something more complex, I do one of two things. Either break it down as far as I can, or I reconsider. Like, if it's that complicated for me that I have to explain it in English, should they be doing it at all at this level? Is it an appropriate task for their level, for the assignment, for what I'm trying to accomplish? So either I break it down as far as I possibly can, or I throw it out as something that's not appropriate, that is not suitable for their level. Any other ideas?
So I haven't started, like I said, doing project-based learning in the classroom, but I know that it's going to require me trying to stay in the target language. Is going to require a lot of supports. So I actually just posted on Twitter a link to pretty much a PowerPoint or Google presentation I made of commands in Spanish that I'll often say for them for giving directions. I think I came up with like 40 or 30 something. If you guys want me to add something to that, I'm definitely willing to. I try to take pictures, usually using stuff like ESL or ELE to, I don't know, kind of explain what the image actually means. So if you guys want to, I put it in the little side box. But I think visuals, in some, I think visuals are really important. Examples, photos of you doing something, photos of them doing something.
Absolutely. The more you can do ahead of time, the more context you can give them, the more anyone can do it at any level. So if you can give them visuals, either acting it out, or if you do it with routine instructions, I think that could work. And Senor Calderon has the course
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, I was sharing this document. It's a Word document from a crash course that I got into PBL, and this one is called actually is based on PBLL, which is project-based language learning, and it shows like the 8 elements that are required for a project to truly be part of a PBL project. So I don't know if it might work for everyone to just look at that document and then just go through the 8 different elements that supposedly from the Buck Institute of Education are the ones that you really need to follow in order to check out what truly PBLL is. In this case, for foreign language learners. So on the first column, it shows what the normal PBL would be for all other classes, and in the third column, you get to see what project-based language learning will be like. There are 8 essential elements. There's a significant content, a need to know, a driving question, the student voice and choice, of course, 21st century skills, inquiry, innovation, feedback, and the publicly presented product. And you get to see, well, I guess we all can check it out and I guess get ideas from here and expand, I guess.
I tried to share it. My poor little computer can't handle more than one window during a Hangout, but that kind of gives you an idea of what to expect.
This looks great. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Jennifer.
Sorry, I had like 4 simultaneous Hangouts on air happening with different delays. So I was staying quiet because I was trying to shut down a million windows. I just finished a conference here in Canada. I'm from Toronto, dealing with the DELF examination, which is a diploma, like an internationally recognized diploma for students recognizing their language proficiency at 6 different levels, from beginner to advanced. And the DELF is based on the CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference, which is very similar to the ACTFL proficiency guidelines. And we talked a lot about the types of tests that we could do, which PBL wraps into really well, where you have these authentic outcomes and you want to put students in situations where they're trying to communicate to get their point across in a situation like they would encounter if they were at work or traveling or at school meeting someone who spoke a different language. And for any French teachers out there, I don't know if this exists in Spanish, which I know lots of you teach Spanish in the States, but there were some great examples on a website, which I'll post the link to, called CIEP, which gave in both French and English these video examples of students at different levels of readiness, like what they would be expected to do. So if you wanted your students to perform some sort of task, you could sort of show them what that proficiency looked like. And that's what I'm going to try and accomplish with projects this year, not only with exemplars from students in the past in my past project endeavors, but also using this framework and some actual examples. Here's what it's leveled, like A1, A2, B1, B2. I'm not sure if ACTFL proficiency guidelines have ratings like that, And I'm not sure if there's a lot of exemplars out there of what that looks like, but it might be a way of showing your students when you want them to produce something in the language at a certain level, like intermediate or novice, what that would look like or sound like. So I'm just diving into this from a proficiency perspective. I know that on LangChat we've been talking a lot this year about proficiency and can-do statements and working that into our projects. But that's what I'm interested in. How I guess we were going to talk about tonight maybe assessment and what you expect out of your novice students, because obviously it doesn't have to be perfect. But we do want to have them working on real-world, authentic tasks. So I'm interested to know where you guys pull from in terms of assessing that at different language levels. Or like if you've done the same task, the same project, but at different levels.
Yes, absolutely. Because in my school, like they'll have the native speakers thrown in with the Spanish ones, and it's like, okay, guys, this is what you're aiming for. So like I set them up with different standards that they're going for, but with the same kind of project. So like they all have to end up with something to convince the little kids to read in Spanish from the elementary school, but like it'll probably have more sentences and more paragraphs if it's the native speakers than it would for my regular Spanish 1 kids, for example. Right. So are we looking at, do we want to go ahead and look at the kind of task? Do we want to look at the Q&A bar, or what are you guys thinking?
I'd love to hear about people's different task ideas.
A question that Shane had posted for her example one was, what are some projects you tried that worked and some that didn't work? I've got a whole list of like ranked of how well they worked on my site. The ones that worked really well were the ones where they actually had the authentic audience, like Ricardo was talking about, like whether it was little kids who were in an elementary Spanish class or whether it was judges at a language festival. As long as they had someone that they had to talk to that wasn't me, bully. But if it was something that was fake, like I had them do a plan verde where they were supposed to, save the world one material at a time, and it sounded very, very hippie. But they were like, why do we even do this? Like they did not get it, and I was like, oh, it's tying in with your service with the public speaking class, and like, no, it's not. And like, oh, there was really no reason for it to be in Spanish, and there was like it was just my my flower child dreams being destroyed. So like it has to be something that connects with them. It has to be something that they do along the way, and you do have to tie in the different communication modes. Like there has to be a reason that they need to discuss, and with a collaboration element, like is Viviana talking about that? But like with a collaboration element, that is a perfect excuse for the interpersonal. With the presentational comes in, certainly with the final thing, even with maybe lists of materials and stuff at the novice level, and then the listening and the reading, the interpretive things, like if they need to do some research, if they need to find out more about how it is in a certain country, or find a book that the kids would like, or find some infographics that support their point of view, then there's a reason to do it.
So I was curious. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I hear you, Viviana.
Okay. Whenever you set the task, the focus is, staying in the target language, but do you focus on the target culture?
Excellent question. That's something I want to do more with myself this year. I figure they're interacting with products of the target culture by interacting with infographics or articles or videos or whatever. I want to do something where we stop and say, all right, what kind of perspectives are you getting from this? What kind of practices are you observing here? How does this compare with what you know in your culture? And so like one I really want to try next year involves them like doing improving themselves, either with exercise, eating habits, organizational habits, something. And they're going to have to find resources on that and be like, okay, so you found this infographic on how much time kids spend on the computer. All right, well, how does that compare to how much time kids spend on the computer here? How is it different? How is it the same? Why? And I want to do more with that, but I haven't done much with target culture. Has anyone else done anything with PBL tying in the target culture?
One of the things that I've done in terms of like creating a real estate market, what we do is we go online and we research what does it look like. We focused on Costa Rica and we researched all about the housing market in Costa Rica. What did it look like? If you were going to buy a house, what did it look like? Is that house different from what you see as your dream house? And we did comparisons. And so they created a house in Costa Rica versus what their dream house looks like. And we talked about how are they different, all in the target language. And then the directions for the project we're giving in both Spanish and English, because we had so many native speakers versus really, really low level language learners in class.
So, Angela, what was the ultimate driving question or the ultimate product of that project? Was it the comparison?
It was the comparison. It was comparing target culture versus culture in Dallas, North Carolina. That's what we wanted to look at. It wasn't necessarily the housing. It was comparing how are you different from what you see overseas. Because we had, I had 8 kids who were going with their church overseas. So we tried to incorporate what they were going to see versus what they knew. But we got to include language, we got to include our vocabulary, etc.
I like that. And I think to make that even more PBL-y, to take it a step further, they might have created something for the other people going with them. Like they might, you know, something so that they could learn how to talk about their house, or if like something was wrong, like the windows busted or something, I don't know. But like if they had a presentation with an audience that they could send that to, that would be even better. I love that they had a real world purpose. And I love that it incorporated the products and the practices, maybe even the perspective. So, yeah.
They actually did. They created videos because they went over Easter. When they came back, they showed us the videos of the house that they stayed at, their homestay, which was their dream house overseas. And so when they came back, the students had created videos. And the kids who didn't go, they created a video over Easter of their home here in North Carolina. So they had comparisons. They were just, you know, a little different.
Has anybody else done anything to incorporate culture into their projects?
Yes, I have. Of course, Dia de los Muertos is huge, so we created a Dia de los Muertos expo at our school where we had both the heritage speakers and the Spanish ones. So the heritage speakers, their driving question was a little more, what can we do to bring cultural awareness of Dia de los Muertos here at our school? Whereas the Spanish ones was mostly, and of course they would touch on the cultural products, practices, and perspectives, but Spanish one would be more in-depth as what are products? Well, those are the nouns, right? The practices, well, those are the verbs. The perspectives, well, the what, the why. And that worked very well. They created their products and their audience. Well, it was an expo, so they invited families. It was an expo, an after-school expo at our school. We created a huge altar, right? And the community came in. They invited people from the community, their parents. So that was nice. So both the heritage speakers, they got more in depth as to why this happens and what practices, why does this happen in your home? Do you practice it? So it was more of like a comparison to, you know, the differences between, you know, Dia de los Muertos in many, our school is primarily students from Mexico. So just different the comparing, you know, Halloween with Day of the Dead. So it was neat to have that come together into a big expo. Now in the future I would like to have it more of a bigger turnout and not just keep it out of school, but really reach out to a larger audience and not just our school, because I think that would make it even more meaningful and more like, ooh, you know, let's see if we can take it. And also I also realized that this project didn't necessarily have a problem, because I do understand that PBL needs to set a problem or something to have a solution to. And in this case, it was more not really a problem. It was more of like, you're asking me to go ahead and make something, right? How can I bring awareness to the school, cultural awareness? That wasn't really successful. It worked, but I'm sure that if it was a different problem related, I'm sure I would have a better turnout from the students.
You mentioned not having a problem, and there is PRBL, which is problem-based learning, and that's really more in like the math kind of classes I've found, where you say solve this problem. But project-based learning is more about make this presentation to answer this question, and it's usually a lot more open-ended. And I think you had it like, how can we share the culture with the school? Now, I really love your reflection there that it didn't do what you wanted it to do. And what that would tell me is that it might need to be a little bit more specific. Because I did something even more general than that. Like I had my kids like teach about something about Hispanic culture for Hispanic Heritage Month at the YMCA that kids could interact with, and that was very lame, and they got almost nothing out of it. So like you want to have something more specific, more purposeful, something they see a reason to do. And I think you're like, it's like tip of your tongue kind of thing. You're almost to that question. So I think the final step really has a lot to do with your personal classroom and school setting, the audience. So like think about what it would be that would connect them. Like what's missing that keeps them from feeling the connection maybe.
A couple of years ago, I had kids talk about and bring in objects that they would put on an altar. So we made altars for Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera in the class. And then we had them talk about what they would put on like family or famous persons' altars for things like that. So it was something that they could maybe get into a little bit more, relate to personally if they had, you know, ancestors or relatives that were deceased that they wanted to contribute for this. And I know there's a lot of community groups that you could probably reach out to. Like in Seattle, there's a Dia de los Muertos group, and they put on presentations in Seattle Center, so I'm trying to get connected with them to connect my students with them for this upcoming year. So maybe check out Facebook for community groups and stuff like that.
Another approach that I've taken in order to connect and learn about other cultures is using ePals. I just wrote on the group chat. So I've had my students talk about what they do leading up to the holidays and make little videos and do little compilations of music they listen to and food they eat and things they do. And then our ePals in Francophone countries will send something back. So they learn about the target culture from the target culture. And I live in Toronto, so I've had students, luckily our school's kind of right in Midtown, and we're close to a bunch of different neighborhoods. So we've gone during a class period to like Chinatown or a famous market area, and I've had the students research and set up a tour, which we videotape, and then they send it to their ePals in the form of a YouTube video. And there are language structures and things that they're learning along the way scaffolded into their final tour that they give. I'd love to connect with the Francophone community here and get people to actually come on the tour live with us, but for now I haven't broken through and found people available during the day to come on tours, but we'll videotape it, and their classmates act as tourists taking part in a half-hour visit to a spot, and it's really awesome how the response when you get matched up with a good teacher who's into this sort of thing will respond, and they'll do similar things in their Francophone city and respond in kind. So that's the way I've tried to do more cultural learning. The kids are really interested in what a teenager their age has to say about their culture, more than me telling them about the culture.
Right, and you definitely have the audience there. That's a beautiful thing. So we're probably about halfway through, so I was gonna try and get to some of the Q&A questions. One of the ones at the top now is, how can you adapt a traditional textbook chapter to PBL? Has anybody tried this?
Well, I can add to that. The way I go about designing my projects, well, it's going into the chapter from the past, right? I would teach a chapter, and then see how those standards in a chapter, how would they align with the project. So, for example, the chapter on commands, right? So then I saw all the different what a student needs to accomplish by the end of that chapter in the book, and then combine it maybe with other chapters and design. So I remember one specific, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I can remember a project we did on do it yourself, like do it hazlo tú mismo, where students would have to, in teams, create a product, and they would have to go through make a video that we would publicly publish on a website for other students to see and comment on how well they create their product just on their directions, right? So they would have to use commands, two commands, etc., and all the other stuff that you need to know for students to create. So it was really neat. It didn't get more authentic than that. I mean, students were really into making these videos and publishing them, and it was like, ooh, hazlo tú mismo, right? The do-it-yourself. So so that turned to be a successful project too, because then I remember a team constructed a what was it, a paper not a telegami, like a paper little fold up little cute little object, and it was really, really neat when they saw others being able to create their product based on the instructions they were giving. So that's how I go about designing my projects, going through the book and seeing if those standards match, or how would they match to a project.
Right. Basically just going through and picking out, why would the kids really need this? What could they actually do with it? And my personal theory is, if there's nothing they actually can do with it, like then and there, like with a partner from your class, with an audience that you can find, I wouldn't do it myself. I don't know, like in other districts I wouldn't have been able to get away with that, but if you have that freedom, skip it. But if you can find something, like find what they would do in real life with it, like hazlo tú mismo, perfect. So like look for the real world application is probably one good thing to do. Has anyone else tried adapting textbook units?
I do something a little differently. Oh, go ahead.
Don't most of the, and our teachers don't use a textbook series. I mean, they pick and pull from certain ones, but don't they typically have some sort of essential question now at the beginning of each unit or theme or something that you could modify? I'm sure they probably won't give you a step-by-step in a textbook, but at least you can start with that essential question to guide the thinking or the inquiry process, perhaps.
Yeah, I read on Christy, I think it was Carrie Toth and Christy Placido have been, or they use their novels, and then they have corresponding AP themes that they use that kind of drives the process of their projects.
So yeah, there are usually some good themes in the textbooks. There are also some bad themes. If you're going to do a really good project-based learning project, then you need to pick and choose which is good and which is bad, which they can use, which they can't. So yeah, start with the themes, or go to the vocabulary list, pick out what you can use from there maybe. I got one question from Deborah. Is PBL a good fit with differentiation? And anyone want to take that one?
I would say that it's actually, it would be the best fit for all kind of students, especially because it's also based on students' voice. They get to choose. Well, when you start with your driving question, they'll make the project their own, and each kid or group of kids will actually be able to work with it regardless of whatever they might try to put together. what I would say like would be an amazing and the best fit there, because it will be like it's individualized for every kid there.
The biggest thing to keep in mind with that, well, differentiation is slightly different from individualization, which is slightly different from personalization. I mean, they're all very, very similar because they do provide voice and choice. But I would definitely say that project-based learning would lend itself much better in providing avenues. I guess I wouldn't consider there to be one driving question with one answer, and I think that's what's really beneficial to this type of learning strategy for students, because you give them the power to investigate through that inquiry process, and they have some flexibility about how they demonstrate what they know and can do. And no two students may wind up with the same finished product at the end, which I think is a good thing for diversity's sake.
Right. I frequently let mine group themselves by what they want to do to answer the question. So like for the one where they were trying to get the younger kids to read in Spanish, like they had to, like if they wanted to build a library for the kids or a book list, then they went to one group. If they wanted to make a book trailer, they went to another group. And so like they form their groups based on that. And so it's differentiated by voice and choice, but also like by the levels. Like they bring each other up, they have discussions with a variety of people. So I think I agree with Ricardo. It is the best thing for differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
Another question says, how long do you typically take for a project? 1 week, 1 month? Within that time frame, what percentage of class is devoted to it? 100%, 75%? How long do your projects take? Or would you want them to take?
Well, mine take between 4 to 6 weeks. So maybe one per grading period. So in the year, I had a total of 6 projects, 3 the first semester and 3 the second semester. And the time devoted to the projects, well, we are now a PBL school, so 100% of the time is PBL. But within the team activities, there's also individual tasks, and so it doesn't seem like we're always just working in teams. They're also doing individual tasks and individual assessments. So that's how long it takes for me.
Mine are usually 4 to 6 weeks too, and we're on a block schedule, so that's 3 in a semester, and yeah, mine are usually about 75% of the time, because I'm also obsessed with Genius Hour, so like they do their own individual things on the side on Thursdays or Mondays depending on their schedule, but so like everything goes toward answering that question. When we're doing interpretive practice, the interpretation goes toward that. We do a TPRS story. It's a story I wrote to go along with the theme. We do conversations. It's about that. We listen to videos. It all ties into the project. So to that extent, I would say we're probably 75%, and then like the other 25% is the Genius Hour and the portfolio kind of stuff that I have them do.
Awesome. Just to jump in on the time frame thing, I would say my projects are typically 4 to 6 weeks as well, and very similar to Laura, I'm incorporating a lot of stuff related to whatever that theme or question we're working on. But I hear about these one-off projects all the time, like through Twitter and other things, where it seems like you could do it in a few classes or longer, but still PBL-esque, just simpler tasks. And I go, how do I fit this in? And like, does anybody else find themselves doing more shorter term tasks than the longer? I typically tend to plan around longer term things, but I was just wondering if other people follow a different format.
I use shorter time frames. I feel maybe a little bit more pressure to get things done, content delivery.
Yeah.
I try not to use that too much because I generally ask the students what they want to learn about the chapter goals, and then we kind of make our own chapter, but it often uses a lot of the same content of the chapter as it would anyway. But I tend to stick with 3 to maybe 4 weeks per theme, and then if there's a project that goes in there, it's within that time frame.
Gotcha. It's good too when you have, like, I don't know about you guys, I teach 75-minute classes, so it's nice to have project time, and also your whatever intro discussion you're doing, which can be a daily class starter or anything else. You definitely have to break it up, and so that's why I find it takes a while to dive into a richer sort of project theme. But no, it's interesting to hear how other people sort of plan things out.
I totally forgot about the starters. I might be getting closer to 50% for how much time we spend on the projects. But I will say that I tried to do 9-week projects when I was on a year-long schedule, and I do not recommend that. Senor Landis can get you. The 9-week projects bored them out of their minds.
Yeah.
So, and it was too much. And then was asked, do you ever abandon a project? And I haven't, and I probably should have. So I don't know. I am inclined to stick it out and like do what I can with it. I have modified them, and I've like made the final product less involved than I originally wanted it to be. So
I've modified the final product also, but the other thing that I do at the end of a project or at the end of any lesson in general is ask the kids something from Dr. Carol Rogers called descriptive feedback, which is what did you learn? And you don't actually reteach anything or anything like that. What did you learn? How do you know you learned it? What helped your learning and what hindered your learning? And the kids are super open to giving that feedback, and it can help inform you as to what you need to change and how. And sometimes they learn things and you're like, it's maybe not what you had intended, but it's a super helpful process.
And reflection is one of the 8 components, I believe. They just changed them up on me, so I'm not entirely sure anymore. But reflection is one of the key components to an effective project-based learning thing. So that should definitely be in there. Right, we have another question. How do you deal with language you speak with your pen pals? I've had connections who want to improve their English too, so we have conflicting interests. Like they want to use their target language, we want to use ours. And the best that I've been able to do is like have balance time. There's nothing wrong with an asynchronous connection where like you leave them a video like Jennifer was talking about, and they leave you a video, and that way everybody gets a little bit of their own. I've been trying to do more with WeSpeak, and it's like, all right, you have to give them some practice in their target language too if you're going to work with them. So like split the time, which eats into your 90%, but I think the payoff is worth it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
My students are typically writing their EPALs in French and on their own time. It's not something we typically do in class. It's something if someone hasn't gotten it done, it'll be one of the options of things to work on that day. But they're mostly done outside. And we'll switch every now and again so they can write in their own language. But I think it's once they get comfortable and realize, oh wow, they make the same mistakes that I do, but in my language, it sort of breaks down some barriers, and then they start switching back and forth between the languages more naturally. And I'm not going to say that it's 100% participation. Every EPAL works out. Somebody was asking earlier about never worked out for me. But I've never had a session where there wasn't a good percentage of connections made where it was like, holy cow, conversations are going on. Like people switching back and forth using French idioms. I'm like, I never teach in idioms because it's like so unnatural and but it's awesome to see it actually being used with purpose, and then and seeing how they continue to become friends on Facebook and other social media as well.
So basically, their own time. They do the English in their own time.
It becomes that, yeah. It's by a certain time they have to have written their EPAL, and if they haven't, then I'll allow time for that and have another task to work on in class, and to get things started. Definitely, I give them class time, but then it sort of rolls on its own after that. And then the video projects are always done as a group that they share with groups of French students.
All right, we have another question. What is the difference between PBL and Genius Hour? Real simply, I would say the main difference is the collaboration element and also who decides the essential question. For project-based learning, I pick the driving question. I pick it, and they decide how they want to answer it. For the Genius Hour, each individual student picks their own, and they do it on their own. They may or may not collaborate, but PBL, they have to collaborate. That'd be my main difference. And Jen, I know you do it too. Have anything to add?
Sorry, you know what? This is really bad. I was just catching up on the group chat feed. Can you just repeat that question one more time? I'm so bad.
I know you do PBL and Genius Hour too. And,
yes.
And I was thinking the main difference was collaboration versus individual, and then teacher assigned driving question versus student selected. Do you have any other differences that stand out for you?
It's with Genius Hour, they are totally driving the learning, and in my class, what was happening in class time was completely different. Like some students couldn't work on their projects in class, and that was so when they came to class, it was reflection time, and then they were doing stuff at home, and then some people were bringing in whatever they needed to, their toolkit, to work on their individual project that day. And then there were interactive activities that I would set up so that they were always talking about what they were learning about and trying to use that new vocabulary and spontaneous speaking activities. Whereas project-based learning is seems to always, for me, be a group activity where the group is working towards the common goal, and there's individual tasks that they take on to complete the project, but it's always been something that's big enough to require a group effort to complete.
Okay. And with that, we are through our Q&A questions. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add or ask or anything else?
I was curious as to how you garner support from your administration.
Results. My principal sees kids speaking Spanish in the hall, hears them talking about what they're doing, and she says, keep doing it. There's not a lot of preoccupation with what everyone else is doing around the district, so I'm very lucky. I don't know if you had someone who's like, oh, we have to pass this district test on grammar and 100 vocabulary words. I don't know if it would be as effective, but I think the main thing you could do is show them what the kids are getting out of it. Show them why you do PBL in the first place, which is the real world connection.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I'm in the same district as Laura, so one of the things that I've noticed, at least in terms of my principal and my administrators, is exactly what she said. Results. Seeing that the kids are really getting active and they're seeking out other opportunities to speak Spanish. For example, they'll go down to a local flea market that's fairly close to my school that speaks Spanish. A lot of people there do. And they'll come in on Monday and they'll tell the principal, you'll never believe what I did. I spoke Spanish and negotiated, the price on a pair of socks. And the teachers, the other Spanish teachers, are seeing the same kinds of things happening in their class. And so I think that that's the big thing is, are they using the language? Are they using the language? Even if it might not be perfect, they're trying. and that they're trying to seek out other opportunities to do it. And that is the main thing, at least in terms of my school, that they want to see. Because up to this point, it's been very grammar related, very book oriented, and I completely pulled away from that. And the kids are seeing better results, and then they're coming back and, you know, they're telling administrators, hey, guess what? I passed my exam, my entrance exam at college. And they see a result. And they said, well, why? And, you know, they're telling them because we had to use it every day. We had to use it outside of school, too, sometimes with our jobs. And so that also helped guide them when they were figuring out their individual projects of what they were going to research and do and complete and demonstrate in class. What did they need in the real world with their Spanish language? So that was a big deal, too.
That's awesome.
We have another Q on the Q&A. Anyone want to suggest a site with a good list of PBL topics or Genius Hour ones? I got one. If you go to pblandthetl.com, I've got some driving questions on there. This is Paulo and Lena, by the way. It's about story time. But there's not a whole lot out there with a lot of suggestions for language classes just yet. So it's kind of up to us to make them, I feel like. I know Don Dola has a bunch on Edutopia and Paulo. And so that might be one place to start too. Anyone have any other ideas? No.
Those are my two favorites.
Any other questions, final thoughts before we wrap up this evening? Because as you can see, it's about story time here. No. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything that you are really excited about trying now? Anything that you want to know?
Well, I definitely hope if you all are trying stuff that that we have a follow-up Lang chat maybe early this fall where we talk about what we're thinking about taking on or we're in the middle of doing for feedback. It would be awesome.
I'm thinking about trying ePals again after hearing you say that you've had some successes with it. So maybe I'll try that again.
Awesome.
I really like the feedback component that Shane mentioned. And there's also another thing earlier that someone posted, and I have to watch my own video here. But yeah, but I definitely want to try some more with the feedback and the reflection component.
Definitely.
Yeah, that one, the article, you have to purchase the article or sort of rent it. I think it's an academic journal, so it's not available pretty much anywhere else, but I did post the link.
Yeah. Oh, and remember, we can always post to the Google community. So if you have more ideas as you try stuff, I would be interested to see what you have as well. So you can always create a post in the PBL discussion on the community, and you can always make a blog, so we know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add in regards to that, like, because I'll be attending like this workshop in Hawaii. I was lucky enough to go for about project-based language learning. So if any of you would like to follow, I'll definitely be blogging about it as I learn a lot more. Definitely, all of you, each one of you has been amazing with all your contributions tonight, and I'm really happy for that and for all your sharing. But yes, but later on, I'll be definitely sharing and posting to the community all what I found about project-based language learning, if any of you is interested in learning a bit more with me.
Yes. Okay. So, any other final thoughts before we log off for the night? We do have two more hangouts this week where we'll be talking about interactive notebooks tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll be talking about rubrics and feedback on Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And any other thoughts? All right. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. Great ideas. I'm gonna have to watch this myself to get some of those ideas I forgot to write down.
Me too.
And hopefully I'll see you in some more hangouts. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Bye.